after fractions, now what? Well, you've done a lot of different things with fractions, and we're going to move on from fractions, but we're going to move on to something that's really directly related to fractions. So our question today is there another way to write a fraction? Yes, there is, and it is called a decimal. Okay, you don't need to write anything down yet, just listening for a first little bit. So you might have heard of decimals or a decimal. We're going to talk about what that is. So fractions are super handy. We just use this little fraction line right here, and we can draw all kinds of fractions. 2/3, 1/4, 7/9, 14 5/100, 5/10, 21 25. So basically we can divide something into as many different pieces as we want, and then we can select any of those number of pieces. So that works out great. Now, we're going to talk about our number system for a second. So you are familiar with base 10 blocks. You've been using them ever since grade 1. So here we have our base 10 blocks. We have our ones right there. We've got our tens right there. We've got our hundreds. And then, of course, we've got our thousands. We studied all of this in place value. Now, when we are thinking about our base 10 system, that means that 10 is the basis for this system. It's the foundation for this system. So how many ones does it take to make 1 10? 10. How many tens does it take to make 100? 10. How many hundreds does it take to make 1,000? 10. So everything works on a system of tens. Now, what do we do when we take one single item and we divide it into equal sections? Well, then we get a number that we can write as a decimal. Before we look at that, though, I want you to look at the fractions at the top. And there is only one of these denominators, that's your bottom number, that can be used and shown as a decimal. So if you think about our system is called base 10. We just talked about this right here. So look at the top and pick the fraction that you think can be also written as a decimal. All right, if you pick this one, you are correct, because there's the basis of our fraction is 10 sections. So we cannot write, not right now at least, later on you'll figure out a way that you can do this, but not right now. We cannot easily figure out how to write those as a decimal, not in grade 4 anyways. Later on, grade 6 or 7 and into high school, you can figure out how to write all of these things as a decimal. But right now, we're just going to stick with the tenths. Okay, in our place value system, again, here we have a chart. We have thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. So what happens now? Well, before we studied a whole bunch of numbers that got bigger than this. We did 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, and so on. But right now, we want to look in the other direction because we want numbers that are smaller than 1. So smaller than one of those. And the way that we show that we're doing less than 1 is we write a decimal. And a decimal looks exactly the same as a period. So in the category that comes after ones, that is smaller than ones, is the category called tenths. So instead of tens, now we have tenths because this 1 is going to be divided up into 10 sections. Okay. Yeah. So we'll refer back to this in a minute, but we're going to go on. All right. So if you can get a pencil and a paper ready, and your title is decimals, the date is April 22nd, and put a number 1 on there. Pause the video until you're ready. Okay, we are going to start with our first fraction that can be turned into a decimal. Now, what did we say? How many sections does it have to be able to turn it into a decimal? Has to have 10. So we are going to divide this rectangle down the middle, and then we are going to draw 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, dividing it into 5 on the top and 5 on the bottom. Okay, and first we're going to write that as a fraction. So we're going to write a 10 on the bottom for the denominator. And now I am going to color in 2 of those. And my fraction would be 2/10. So 2 of the tenths are colored in. Now, the fraction makes sense to you. We've done that. Now, how do we write that as a regular number? Well, do I have 1 complete unit? This is the 1 item. Is it completely filled in? No, it isn't. So we have 0 complete units. Now I'm going to put the decimal. Okay. But how many parts out of 10 do I have? I've got 2. So this is how we write 2/10 as a decimal. 0 decimal 2. And these 2 things mean exactly the same thing. Okay, let's try that. For number 2, you can get another rectangle ready. Okay, again, for decimals, always a 10 on the bottom. Okay, this time I want you to color in this decimal. Okay, now, can you see if you can figure out how to write the decimal beside? We've got the fraction, 4/10. Can you pause the video and see if you can figure out how to write that decimal? Okay, 0 is our whole number. We do not have a whole unit of anything. If we had a whole, it would all be colored in. We don't have that. And decimal. And now the parts of a whole. We have 4 parts out of 10. 0 decimal 4. So 4/10 equals 0 decimal 4. All right, number 3, I would like you to color in this fraction, and I would like you to write the decimal beside. So pause that until you've colored it and written the decimal. All right, you should have 6 sections colored in, and our decimal should be 0 decimal 6. Okay. All right, number 4. Now, this time I'm not going to draw the picture. All I'm going to do is write the fraction, and then I'd like you to try writing the decimal. So write this fraction down, and then see if you can put the decimal beside. Pause the video until you're ready. Okay, so if you did that properly, you should have 0 decimal 9. Number 5, 7/10. Pause the video until you're ready. And if you did that properly, it should be 0 decimal 7. Okay, let's try one that goes the other way. I'm going to write the decimal and you write the fraction. 0 decimal 3. Pause the video until you have your fraction written. Okay, and 3/10. And number 7, we'll try one more. And pause your video until you're ready. And this should be 5/10. All right, number 8. Now, I am going to give you something to think about, and you have a job to do. You are going to write the fraction, and if you can, you're going to write the decimal beside. So let's do one together, and I'll give you an example. Okay, there's a spider, and 6 of its legs are broken. Okay, so how many legs does a spider have? It's got 8, so that has to be the denominator. And I wanted you to write the fraction for how many legs are broken. 6 out of 8 of the legs are broken. So our fraction for broken legs is 6/8. Can you write that as a decimal? No, you can't, because the 8 on the bottom is not a 10, and it has to be a 10 in order for you to write this as a decimal. And again, later on, you will learn how to write this as a decimal, but for grade 4, we're only going to work with 10 on the bottom. So decimal, can we do it? No, we cannot. Okay, let's try number 9. All right. Let's see. So there are 10 dimes, and you spent 7 of them. How many dimes do you have left? Let's see if you can write the fraction for that. So 7, you had 10 dimes, you spent 7 of them, and you have 3 of them left. So can you write the fraction for how many you have left? All right, so there were 10 dimes. You spent 7, that means there's 3 left. Now pause the video and see if you can write that as a decimal. Can we write it as a decimal? Absolutely. We've got 10 on the bottom, so we've got tenths. So we can write 0.3. So we have got 0.3 of our dimes left, or we have 3/10. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, next one. You have got a cookie that is broken into 4 pieces, and you eat 2 of them. So can you write a fraction for the number of pieces that you have left? Okay, you should have a 4 on the bottom. That's the total number of sections. And you ate 2 of them, so 2 are left. And I want you to pause and think about how to write that as a decimal. Can you write that as a decimal? No, you cannot, because there is a 4 on the bottom. And remember, we are talking about we have to have 10. So base 10 system, there have to be a 10 sections, a 10 on the bottom. Let's do one more. Okay, so listen to this one. There are 10 soccer balls, and 1 of them gets lost. So can you please write the fraction for how many soccer balls you have left? Okay, so you had 10 soccer balls. 1 of them got lost. That means you have 9 left. Then I want you to pause the video and see how you can write that as a decimal. Okay, and yes, we can write that as a decimal. 0.9. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do on this page is I'm going to, let's just see what number that was, number 11. I'm going to give you a few questions that I would like you to do, and then you can send me a picture of all the questions that you do on your own, or you can send me the last few answers by writing them in the comment box. Okay, so here are the 4 questions that I would like you to do. So for number 12 and 13, you're going to turn that fraction into a decimal. And don't forget to write the period in the middle. And for number 14 and 15, you're going to turn that decimal into a fraction. Okay, so remember to show me number 12, 13, 14, and 15 if you take a picture, or write those in the comment box. And that is our lesson for today.